Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Chris Murray Report on WURD Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a full show for you guys today. We have coming up at the 11:30 hour. We will be having Amir Whitehead, who is going to be he is a black African American young man who's a fencer and will be competing in the Junior Olympic Fencing Championships today down at the Convention Center in downtown Philadelphia to compete for the Junior Olympic Fencing Championships. And we're going to talk to him today about that sport because a lot of times, this is one of those non-traditional sports that African Americans get into, and it's always a pleasure to see us, see our kids basically going out and trying other sports. So we're going to talk to him at the 11:30 hour. At 12 noon, we're going to be talking to, hopefully and via Skype, we're going to be talking to Yusuf Khan, who is the editor-in-chief and managing editor of firstandpen.com, a new sports black sports website, devoted to telling the untold stories in African Americans in the game of sports, as well as talk about contemporary issues in sports and all that. So we're going to be talking to him today at the noon hour. Then at 12:30, we're going to bring back Marlisa Lawrence Corbett, the author of Serena Williams, tennis champion, sports legend, and cultural heroine. We're going to be talking to her today about Coco Gauff. Coco Gauff won today in straight set 6-3 to advance to the fourth round of Wimbledon. And so we still have a lot of black tears. Right now, we are watching on ESPN. We're watching Felix Auger-Aliassime, young black player from Canada, playing in his third round match today. He's struggling right now. I think he lost the set something like 5-2. 6-2. I'm sorry, 6-2. In that first, he kind of got off to a very slow start. So we'll see how this young man comes up, later on today. And then at about so those are our guests for today. Now, a couple things that I wanted to talk about. Well, first and foremost, I want to go into last night. The Phillies lost, of course. The Phillies won 4-3 last night. They got a walk-off double from Brad Miller in the ninth. The bottom of the 10th to win the extra innings. Even though they were up 3-0, the bullpen still has not figured out a way to close out a game, and so that kind of drew
I honestly thought we were going to lose.
Fans. Yeah. You saw that. All week this team has struggled in that bullpen, and the thing is, Jordan, what bothers me about that. We talked to Girardi this week, and one of the things he kept saying was, well, he didn't have all of his guys, and he didn't. Okay, I'll give him all the all the credit, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt of that. But my question, was if you don't have your guys, your main guys available, then what are you saying about the other guys? Are they not up to snuff? Somebody, if you don't have a guy available, somebody, logically, Jordan, am I right on this? Should be ready, right? You should have somebody.
Exactly.
Somebody ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. With that being said, it kind of shows that we don't really have like a deep bullpen.
No, the Phillies don't. They don't have a deep bullpen, and I think the starters are under the impression. The starters are under the impression that somehow that they're going to have to go. They're going to have to go a little bit longer than usual because you don't trust the bullpen.
Right.
Yesterday Wheeler went like 7 2/3 innings. He went all the way into the 8th inning, and it's just one of those things where I just got to the point where I was like, well, they had to do that, but why not let them finish it? I'm an old school baseball fan. I grew up in the era of Jim Palmer, Tom Seaver, and guys going the full 9 innings. Bob Gibson and all those guys going the full 9. That's the era I grew up I'm not a fan of this regulation of the pitch count. It's made pitchers soft, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's just me. I mean, I just feel like the game has, just really changed to that level. So they got to fix the bullpen. But I'm not going to harp on the Phillies too much too long today because, like I say again, I don't feel like getting heartburn over that. But I want to talk about something else, Jordan, in the world of sports. The young lady whose name for some reason I'm forgetting, Richardson, Sha'Carri Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, Sha'Carri Richardson was suspended by, I think it was the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency or the IOC for using marijuana. Now, on social media, of course, that sparked a storm,
Mm-hmm.
and my position on this will probably offend some of I don't know what I would often call black middle class sensibilities or respectability politics and all this other stuff. Maybe it will, but my thing at the end of the day, yes, Sha'Carri Richardson probably should have known the rules, so she did know the
Mm-hmm.
rules, but the one thing that, first of all, maybe the rules and not Sha'Carri Richardson are at fault here, because when is marijuana a performance enhancing drug? If you are talking
Mm-hmm.
about the Olympic, eating contest, which doesn't really exist, but let's just say that there was. Okay,
All right, you got it. Yeah.
it's a performance enhancing drug if you want to if you want to eat more bags of Doritos than your opponent. Okay?
Then there you
It's
go.
there you go. I would win that every time. Heck, the way I ate yesterday, I don't need weed to help me do that. I have a seafood problem. My seafood, and I eat it, okay? So I don't need weed to do that. But to be honest about, and I looked this up, I was saying marijuana as a performance enhancing drug. I looked at a couple of surveys, a couple of studies, and no, there's no evidence that marijuana is a performance enhancing drug.
Nope.
If you want to sleep better, if there's an Olympic sleeping contest, I will tell you the story. I'll be honest. I had a friend of mine told me to try some of this because I was having some issues. There was a point a couple of years, like last year, that I couldn't sleep until about 3 o'clock in the morning. So she said, well, she gave me this stuff. It was like some type of cannabis substance mixed in with some juice or something. And the only thing that thing did for me was make me sleepy and go through some leftover Popeyes in a space of a few seconds. Okay. It will not help you run the 100-meter dash in 10 seconds. I think it's an archaic rule. They should throw it out. And it's an unjust rule. It's, Martin Luther King wrote in a letter from a Birmingham jail the need to kind of get rid of or to sometimes defy unjust laws. And, it's a funny thing, black people riding on a bus was actually a law. And if you violated it, somebody's going to say, well, you should know the rules. Okay? You should know the rules. You'll go to jail. You would have gone to jail in 1950 in Birmingham, Alabama, and heck, in most of the South, if you try to sit in the back of the bus. But you know the rules, right? In the case of Sha'Carri Richardson, okay, we have a situation where her mother passed away. And she admitted that, well, her mother passing away kind of affected her in some kind of way. And I've lost a parent before. I know what that's like. Sometimes, and in my particular case, because I've had more than a few people say, well, she hardly knew her mother. And what I would say to that is that sometimes that boy, even if that was the case, let's say that's the case, sometimes that boy if that parent dies, that affects you because maybe there was a point where you were just starting to get together and you're trying to get to know each other and all of a sudden that happens. I I don't care who you are. And this is where I think sometimes the veneer of black respectability politics, sometimes never understands. Yes, logically we say rules are rules. Darn it, we black people just have got to follow the rules. Okay? We're always making excuses. Well, the one thing that we don't take into consideration, and I'm just saying this, this is my opinion. I believe you have to agree or disagree. My feeling about that is that we have a tendency to overlook. Mental health is something we don't talk about in our families. It's something we do not talk about because in the racist society that we live in, especially if you were born in certain middle class enclaves in this country and whatnot, that you have to be perfect. You have to be on some level perfect. You're respectable. You can't make any mistakes. And in terms of mental health, we don't take that seriously. I was on Facebook last night. I was on social media, and I was amazed at a number of people who kept saying, "Well, she got to know the rules, and this is somehow an excuse." Okay, people react to trauma or tragedy in their lives with people react to tragedy and trauma in varying ways. And for us and sometimes we are quite, and especially those of us in the old, quote unquote, old school and old heads and all that, because we're so into, well, she should follow the rules. Yes, everybody should follow the rules. I'm not poo-pooing that. But when I heard the reasons why she took, she went to marijuana, she took marijuana to maybe calm herself to deal with those situations on her own.
Yep.
That's where I said, I'm sorry, Jordan, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's when I said, you know what? Maybe they need to change this rule, or maybe the IOC, International Olympic Committee, and others, maybe we need to take this into consideration. And the fact that, in the state where she was training, in Oregon, it's legal. It's becoming legal, not only in this country, but in some parts around the world. It's becoming legal, and it does have medicinal purposes, okay? And that was the thing that I saw when I was looking up the information, is that, people have injuries in the sport, and they use it to, to deal with pain.
Yep.
Yeah. And, and the thing about it, it's easy for people of my generation to say, oh, she's being weak, or she should know the rules, or she should have had other options. You don't know how people are going to process pain in any moment. And I read that more than a few people talking about the money she blows. Sometimes, and there we go. Sometimes money is not as important as your mental well-being. If your body gets sick, what do? You treat it with something. When the mind gets sick, you have to do. The mind and the heart get sick, you treat it. I'm sorry. There are times when I basically, I'm not a fan of black respectability politics at all. Having grown up around it, I really am not. Because when it comes down to those things, we act like, oh my God, black people aren't supposed to feel grief or have mental health problems. We're not supposed to, because we are strong. We've had to deal with racism and all these things, right? Had to deal with racism and all that, but it takes its toll. And I'm a member of the National Association of Black Journalists. I go to the conventions every year. I know a lot of people. There's a lot of people. The mindset was always, they always told us. And I remember my father was coming up in the business back in the day, that we got to be excellent, most excellent, and all these other things. We have to be excellent at all times. But I do think that there was also kind of a psychic cost we paid for that so-called excellence. I can tell you, I'm not going to get into the who's or what's, but I do know stories of black journalists who had, issues with drugs, have issues with alcohol and other mental health situations. But we're not supposed to have those things. We're just supposed to just cover it up. I watched a show on HBO called In Treatment, starring, I think it was Uzo Adoku. I can't really, I'll get the names mixed up. and she plays the character Brooke, who is a psychologist. Who not only is she a psychologist, she's also an alcoholic. And there was a segment of the show where they had this young girl who was black, young black middle class girl who was having issues, and her grandmother hoped that and she came out and said that she was a lesbian. And of course, in our community, if you're gay or lesbian, I really feel sorry for those who are gay or lesbian, because we're still in our community still trying to hide those people in our community. You know, saying that saying that they're sick or they're immoral for being who they are. And so this is why I say again, and God knows the mental health issues that arise out of that we tend to ignore. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, we have to deal. And in the show, this relatively regal black middle class mother is hoping that somehow her daughter's treatment, you know, results in the end of her homosexuality, or somehow she learns how to do whatever. And one of the things that the main character did was like, wait a minute, this is not conversion therapy. We got to get down to the issues of what's wrong with her. Again, this whole veneer of respectability politics being played out. And of course, it's a dramatization, a TV show, but it's reflected of somewhat of our attitudes about mental health. We look at what's going on in the hood. People are shooting each other. Best poverty is at the root cause, but you know, mental health, how we deal with the world, the trauma that we've dealt with. Gotta deal with that. Okay? I don't care, like I said again, Sha'Carri Richardson should be able to run. Okay? And if she's dealing with something like that, I think, you know, sometimes rules are the rules, sometimes overlook certain things. And like I say, you know, I guess at one time it was illegal to be gay, or in Nazi Germany it was illegal to be a Jew. I mean, it's a lot of things that when we say rules are rules, there's a lot of, sometimes rules are rules, sometimes violate the spirit of human beings. You know, Sha'Carri Richardson's only problem was she was human. She was absolutely human. And please, you know, like I say again, don't tell me you can whitewash it with money, because even if you make money, there's still those issues there. Those issues cannot be whitewashed in the veneer of respectability politics. It cannot be. And, you know, till we deal with what ails us, it's like you deal with the ails or the illness of the body. Until we deal with those things, we're going to keep having these situations. It can't be masked by money or respectability, or that white folks really love you and all this other stuff, or through popularity. You know, there's a lot of things that are going on. You know, if a black girl gets sexually assaulted, she can't tell anybody. 1 in 15 black women report, fail to report that they've been sexually assaulted. Only one person maybe comes forward to report it. Okay, so that's a lot to combat. And then I'm not going to talk about Bill Cosby today. I'm not going to talk about that, you know, because that's a whole can of worms. But part of that situation is the fact that sometimes we don't talk about the situations we deal with as a community. We don't talk about it. We like to kind of, you know, say, hey, this is not, you know, and I've taught students under this pandemic. You know, we've had a lot of depression issues with students, even athletes going through these things. And so we can't, but like I say again, respectability politics does not help mental health issues. It doesn't. And I don't care who you are, what people say about it and all that. You can play it off, act like nothing has happened and all this other stuff. Oh, we have to hold her accountable. Maybe we have to hold those who make stupid laws about marijuana usage, marijuana somehow as a form of enhancing drug. Hey, you know what? I may drink a little bit of brandy or so after I grade papers and deal with students all day. That make me a bad person and whatnot. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's legal to do that. And I think that alcohol in no way does not improve performance in the 100-meter dash. That rule has to change along with society. So that's my take on that. Let me take in a couple of calls before we go to break, and then we'll go to break, um, and then I have to bring in my first guest. So let me talk with who we got. Brother Joe from Germantown. Go ahead, briefly though.
Hey, brother Chris and Jordan, how y'all doing today?
I'm doing good.
Doing good.
Hey, Chris, let me say this, brother. I want to talk about Sha'Carri Richardson and Gwen Berry. I don't know if you heard about Gwen Berry's situation, the other sister in track and field. But Chris, let me say this real briefly about Bill Cosby. Me and Brother Maurice was on a radio show yesterday from North Philadelphia. He's a good brother. And I resent the fact when I heard people attack people like me and Maurice because we said we love Bill Cosby, and I have to apologize. I have a right to my due. I'm glad Bill Cosby's out of jail, and Bill Cosby's not a faultless. He's a human being. He's a flawed human being, like we all flawed human beings and stuff. And I resent when somebody can get on the radio and tell me because I like Bill Cosby that it is okay for me to think women of any, and I'm not accusing Bill Cosby of doing anything, because the man, I take him at his word. He said he didn't force nobody against their will. So because I love Bill Cosby don't mean I want to see black women or no other woman being sexually assaulted. Anybody that does that to a woman in a court of law and it's proven without a doubt that they did it, of course they should go to jail. So I resent, and I got nieces and stuff like that. So I resent when somebody can call the radio that won't be blacker than anybody else that can sit and say that we must be okay with somebody raping somebody or sex. That's a bunch of BS, man. I resent when I hear people say stupid stuff like that, man. Why would I be okay with that? I love Bill Cosby, meaning I want to see no woman being sexually assaulted and stuff. And yeah, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. But let me say this, Chris. Let me say this about Sha'Carri Richardson. See, you know the hypocrisy. I don't know when Michael Phelps was in the Olympic Games. You know he was tested for marijuana, and I don't think he was suspended back then. I think that's what the sister was saying on the radio show yesterday. I don't think he was suspended. I think he was allowed to get treatment and go in and compete. So you see the racist double standard. Remember Ryan Lochte, the white guy that was in the Olympics a few years ago. He was over there, and over there he was 30-something years old at the time. Remember the story, Chris, over there, and he was caught stealing or doing something against the law. The white media referred to him as a kid. And Stephanie Renee, who used to be a host on this station, she was outraged. She said, you call young black men who was in their teens, you tried them as adults, you called them thugs and stuff, but this white boy who was 30-something years old in the Olympics, the media referred to him as a kid. He wasn't no damn kid. He was a grown man. He knew exactly what he was doing. See, and I think, this is where our congressional black caucus needs to raise hell. People on that congressional black need to raise hell and say, you better not suspend that sister. You better let that sister run because, like you said, Chris, she's human. Her mother just died. Everybody pressed her, and I'm not no lover of marijuana, and I don't promote smoking marijuana, but everybody is different. People process sympathy and grievance differently, and she's a human being. That congressional black caucus should be raising the holy hell and say, you better not suspend that sister. Get that sister some help, but let that sister run and compete in the Olympics so she can honor her late mother's memory and win that gold medal for her mother and stuff like that. Don't do that to that sister and everything. So they need to raise their voices, which oftentimes they silent.
Okay.
And lastly, on Gwen Berry, and stuff, I know you want to go to the next call or commercial. There's a sister who turned her back on the national anthem, and what did the white man do? He go get these house Negroes like Candace Owens that sign up, get a petition going to try to get her kicked off the Olympic team. And she did her like Kaepernick. She expressed her views, and what she said was this: she said, "I don't hate my country, America." She said, "I don't like that song. She said, I'm not going to honor the national anthem." He said, "Because in that song, they got a verse in there, as you know that third verse talking about killing black people, saying black people slaves and everything." He said, "Why would I want to honor a song like that? You wouldn't ask Jewish people, white Jewish people, to honor the Nazi national anthem. So why should black people have to honor the national anthem? Like when Barry said, that song describes my people, and I'm not going to honor that song. And I applaud that young black sister for standing her ground. And that's all I want to say today, Chris, because I know you pressed for time. But thank you for letting me express myself, man. Thank you, sir."
Okay. Now, before I move to the next call, there's also a situation out, and I'm going to talk to Yusuf about that at about 12 noon about the swimmer. They stopped. They can't wear a certain swimming cap that holds natural hair. That's another story. Okay, real quick before we go to break, I want to bring in. Let me see. Is that Richard from North Philadelphia? Richard, go ahead.
How you doing, Chris?
I'm okay, man.
Okay, I know it's tough, isn't it? Well, listen, the NBA playoffs. Now, I think tonight that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to wrap it up tonight and be ready to go on and play the Phoenix Suns tonight. And I think should be good. Now, listen, I thought that the other game the other night, now, which was from Atlanta, got hurt, I believe, and I think Giannis
Trae Young got hurt. Yes, he did.
Yeah, okay. Is Giannis still hurt or what?
I think Giannis is still hurt. Giannis might be out. Is he out for the rest of the series? I think he's out for the rest of the series.
Yeah, I think for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Well, I think Milwaukee's going to win it tonight and go on to play Phoenix. Now, Phoenix got a hell of a team there. Chris Paul and, of course, the guy from Philadelphia named Bridges, and
Right.
that. But anyway, listen, so far with the Ben Simmons thing, I know you and Jordan been hearing. I think I heard one thing from Cleveland. They talk about Colin Sexton, Kevin Love, and a draft choice. But then I heard another trade possible. There's this guy named Brogdon and
Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers. Yeah,
that wouldn't be good. But listen, what about us getting that Damian Lillard about Portland? You think we can do that?
Yeah, I'll say this. Like, is they going to try to trade Ben Simmons? That's got to be the deal. You got to somehow get that deal done, honestly.
Yeah. For Dame Lillard, if the guy trade him, Dame Lillard is the guy that I trust with the ball late in the game. That's a guy, and I think he can make guys around him better as well. But you do lose out on the defense from Ben Simmons. So we got to go to break. We definitely got. I hate to cut this short, but we got to go to break. We got to pay some bills. You're listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURD, the Chris Murray Report. We'll be right back.
Hey, WURD family, did you hear? It's official. The Colorectal Cancer Alliance just announced the new age for colon cancer screenings has been officially lowered to age 45 for everyone. If you are 45 or older, it's time to get screened. Go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner to register for your free at-home screening test. Did you know colon cancer is largely preventable with on-time screening? And there's a 90% survival rate when caught early. African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. So for the next 3 months, you can go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. A screening navigator will contact you to ask a few questions and help you get screened. It's that simple. Again, just go to wordradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and fill out the form to request your free at-home screening test. Go to Know today.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The Black Words book for July is White Evangelical Racism, The Politics of Morality in America by Penn's Dr. Anthea Butler. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, July 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Okay, we are back. We got a few minutes. I'm trying to coordinate everybody. I got one person coming in on Skype, and the other one will come in by a regular phone. We're going to have Amir Whitehead, who's a young man out of the Baltimore area, and he's going to be competing. I think he is one. He's one of a couple of African, maybe one African American. I don't know how many are in defensing. And as I can recall, as I'm sitting here kind of looking up things, I know there was there was a young African American woman who was a Muslim who competed in the last Olympics, and she won a bronze medal. If my my memory serves me correctly. But I wanted to kind of talk about, because these are some of the non-traditional sports that I think that, we see African Americans, and we're talking about tennis today, Coco Golf, and we talk about, other sports like lacrosse. We talk about all these things, and it's always good to see us explore these and these are the stories that really don't get told as much as I think they ought to be, because I sit here on this show, we talk about Phillies, we talk about Ben Simmons and all these other things, and I always like to talk about those stories, how like kids playing high school, kids that are doing other things other than the traditional sports. So from that perspective, let me see. Jordan, do we have our guest on with us right now?
Oh yeah, he's on right now.
I'm right here.
And if you can put if you can put your camera on, you can. You don't have to. But
I can
you can turn it on. Okay.
Can you see me? Can you see me? I'm trying to figure out how to get this on.
I can't say. I saw you briefly for a second. So.
How about now?
Okay, I can see you
perfect.
now. Okay, Amir, good to see you. First of all, I gotta ask, and you've been asked this question. I read all the reports in the Sun. What drew you to this sport? Now, you mentioned that your dad was a Broadway Shakespearean Broadway actor, and what was it? I don't know. Was it Hamlet or something? Sword fight scenes or something like that? What brought you to fencing?
So first of all, I have to say thank you for having me on the show. It's a great honor to be here. And so I was about 8 years old, and prior to that, I was playing basketball and baseball at that point. And then I was talking to my dad one day, and he told me like about fencing. And at this point, I did not know anyone who fenced, because I was only focused on baseball and basketball, because those were the two sports that I played. So then he took me to a club around the corner from my house, a fencing club, and like that was like the first time that I ever fenced. And so after that, like I was still focused on baseball and basketball. And so at that point, I decided to stop fencing. So I fenced for about a year, and then I stopped fencing because I focused on baseball and basketball, like I said. And then in 8th grade, actually it's kind of a funny story because so I played for my 8th grade baseball school team, and this was a year where I got like no playing time on the team. And I was like so angry that I got no playing time. So I told my dad that I wanted to quit baseball. And so he told me that I needed to focus on the sport in high school. So I decided to pick fencing back up. And so it was kind of an odd time because it was a sport I had already tried out, but it was not something that I was very passionate about at that time. So in the summer between 8th and 9th grade, I started to fence again. And then at this point, it was not a passion of mine. And then it was like about halfway through 9th grade year when I finally won. It was like a small tournament. I came in first place. I got a gold medal. And at this point, I knew that fencing was something I was passionate about, and I knew it was something that I was planning on continuing in high school and hopefully in college.
So was it at that point when you won that gold medal, was that point when you said, you know what, I can be good at this sport? Because there's always a moment in sports where you figure out, man, I'm really good at this. And also, I'm going to ask you about because there are various forms of fencing. There's foil, there's épée, and there is saber. And your specialty is foil. But what was that moment like when you said, not only do I like this sport, but I'm pretty darn good at it. I'm really good at this sport.
So like I just said, in halfway through 9th grade, I finally came in first. But it was not until probably about 11th grade
which was only about a year ago, when I really thought to myself and said, I'm very good at this sport. And it was at that moment that I came to like the realization that fencing was something that something that I could like stay with for a long time. So prior to that, I kind of just thought I would just fence in high school and then stop after that, and then I would not play a sport in college. But 11th grade year, I realized that fencing was going to be in college. So over the summer between 11th and 12th grade year is when that dream is when I realized that I could achieve this dream of fencing in college, because I began talking to these college coaches, and this dream I had, it seemed like something that could come true. And then, of course, on December 15th, I got accepted into Lafayette College, which is the school that I ED to. And so then at that moment, I realized that fencing was something that I could really stay with for a long time. And so just to answer your question again, it was about halfway through 11th grade year when I came to the realization that I was pretty darn good at the sport, as you said.
Okay, I can't say the other word on the air. Bad word. But the thing. Yeah, but the thing about it, though, I mean, because there's always that thing, and I want to bring in your coach, Charles Green, to talk about what do you need as a fencer? And both of you guys can answer that question. I'll bring in the coach first. What do you need? It seemed like speed, especially in foil where your targets are like the chest area. Am I correct? I mean, I hope I'm saying this, hope I'm not speaking out of turn here. And that's hard to do, you know, the move that, you know, and I managed to watch a few of those matches, and the score now, you had to go to 15, right, just to win the match, right? For the first to 15, is that how it's scored?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So I gotta ask your coach, and I'm gonna ask you, what makes Amir such a great fencer? I mean, at his age, I understand you're going up against adults who've been at this for years and years. So, Coach Green, if you know, can you what makes for a great fencer?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. From my viewpoint, what makes a good to a great fencer is someone that is willing to learn. I'm always looking for the athlete or the person that is persistent, that wants to try something different. If I can teach it and you want to receive it, then we can work together and learn a new skill. And from that, we will build upon a foundation and see how far you can go. So I'm always looking for the person that wants to try something and is willing to take the ups and the downs and keep going forward until they learn the new skill and then improve upon that skill.
Okay. And now I gotta ask, what makes Amir? What's unique about Amir's ability as a fencer? And is the foil part like the most difficult part? I know I think in what I read about Ipe and Saber, that the whole body is a target, but the chest area, you know, to get that stab or that piercing of the chest, it seems like from my untrained eyes, that's the most difficult thing to do.
Well, each of the different weapons, as you said, foil, FA, and saber. Foil, which is what Amir does, has a smaller target. The FA has the entire body as the target, and saber is somewhere in between. They each present something a little different. For the most part, probably the most difficult one is going to be the FA, in an instance that there's no room for mistake. Everything counts. In foil, you have to deal about 5 and 6 steps ahead, and the speed. So they each have just a little bit of a nuance. It's like saying, which is harder, the 110 hurdles or the 100 dash or the 440? You know, each has a little bit different, and somebody brings a little bit different type to it. Now, with the mirror, I've always been able to, I've been blessed with the ability to just see talent. When I saw him, I just noticed how inquisitive he was. He has these big eyes that he's always looking. He's just soaking up information. And I approached him and I said, "You've got a lot of talent, and I think you can go somewhere." And so I just sort of sat back and watched him think. And he said, "Well, could I work with you?" His mom asked, "Could he work with me?" And I said, "I have no problem. I would love to do that. This is how I work and work with my athletes." And Amir brought his natural ability to the table. He's already gifted. All I did was just show him a couple of things about when to use it and when not to use it. If you look at sprinters, they're naturally fast. All a coach does is teach them when to accelerate and when to decelerate. Just a couple of things, but that speed is already God-given. Amir has talent, which is easy to work with. I just said, well, do this one thing before you do this other thing that you're naturally good at. And then we'll come back and incorporate everything. But, you know, he's just inquisitive, and that's what I saw. And we meshed together the way I like to teach, the way he likes to learn, and it's just clicked. So we work together as a team, especially as parents. His parents are a godsend. If it wasn't for his parents, Amir wouldn't be where he is. So all praise and glory to his parents.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, is this kind of an expensive sport? You know, we talk about baseball. You got to buy gloves. You got to buy bats. You know, batting gloves and all that. Is this is this like an expensive sport like tennis and like all those other things? Is this sport terribly expensive, or is it, I don't know, maybe somewhere in between?
Well, as a legal answer, my legal training, it depends. In fencing, you have your initial outlay for the uniform. That's probably about $150. A lot of the places where you learn, they already have uniforms, and they'll tell you don't buy anything. Use one of our off-the-rack stuff, and if you really want to commit, you know, usually grandma's buying something at Christmas or a birthday, and they say, well, I want to get them something. All right, well, let's buy them a uniform. The weapons, same thing. You can go from custom-made down to just off the rack, and everybody has a little bit different feel. You can make it what you want, but the stuff lasts for a long time. You can spend a lot of money. That's very easy to do, but you don't have to. There are some basketball shoes that people will go through, not even playing basketball, that will outfit an entire fencer. So it's relative. In my organization, we have the ability to make the entry very affordable and easy, and then just the way that I do things, it helps. You know, we can help the athlete. But in general, it's not expensive, but you can make it expensive. In the fencing world, if you want to come and do this, the fencing people that are in it, we will more than reach out more than halfway and say, you just come through the door and we'll take care of the rest. We're very inviting people.
Okay, I have to go to break because I want to ask you some other things about being in the matches themselves, going up against tough competition. So we got to go to break. You're listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM WURD. The Chris Murray Report will be right back.
The Mattress Man is a second-generation family-owned mattress specialist business since 1988. Open 7 days a week, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. The Mattress Man discounts Serta, memory foam, orthopedic, and ComfortTech mattresses every day. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure you get the best price and best service. The Mattress Man offers same-day delivery on most models to most areas. Ask about the WURD discount. Call 215-424-5550.
Are you looking to hire diverse talent? WURD has got you covered. We just launched a brand new job portal to help connect you with diverse talent in Philadelphia and beyond. If you would like to have your jobs featured on our job portal, give us a call at 215-425-7875 or send us an email at sales@wordradio.com. Check out the job portal today on our livelihood website at wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com and click jobs.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Okay, we are back. We have Amir Whitehead and his coach. Hold on a second, Charles Green on. Oh, I don't remember names and stuff. We have him talking about the sport of fencing. Now, Amir, I gotta ask you. Now I'm wondering about the matches you've won. You've got this big Junior Olympic thing coming up today, and now you start competition tomorrow, right? Or is that today?
Yes, sir. So I'm actually driving up there right now today, and then I start tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning. And so I fence on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then I leave and come back, and I fence that following Sunday.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. I don't know how many. Like I said, I know somewhere we talk about how many times you've won, but what's it like to be in these competitions? And can you talk about a match that you were that you were pushed in, that you somehow came out and you won the match? Because it's a lot of times those things it seemed like what I've read, you seem to increase in confidence every time whether you win or lose. So how do you deal with difficulties in a match? You're fighting, you're going against an opponent that may be a little bit better or just as good as you. How do you deal with that?
So I think like the biggest thing is to just stay focused in the whole match. And so it's like normally in a match, so there are 3-minute periods, and so in this match could easily go all 3 periods. And if I even lose focus for a few minutes, then I could easily lose the bout. So I have to make sure that I stay focused through all 3 periods, or even the first, second, or third period. And in this time, I have to make sure that I am doing every action right, because if not, then I could easily lose 5, 6, 7 points on just doing like one action wrong multiple times over. And one match that I think about is, so it was about a year and a half ago at my club, and I was fencing someone, and him and I are about on like the same level, and we were in like a very hard match, and I think it was the second period, and the score was about 13-9 his way, and of course it was to 15, but and then I looked over at my coach, and he told me just to stay focused and to focus on my actions. And after that, I scored 6 points in a row because I went from 9 to 15, and I ended up winning 15-13. But in that moment, I just looked over at my coach, and he just told me just to stay focused and to focus on my actions. And his words carried me through to the finish line. And so in that bout, it's like the biggest thing that he talked about, like after this bout, it was just about how I stayed focused, and that in each match, it doesn't matter what the score is, it could be 14-0 and I'm winning. I still have to be focused on that 15th touch, because if I lose focus, it could easily go from 14-14 to 14-0 to 14-14. And so I have to stay focused, and I have to make sure that I am still doing perfect actions, and it does not matter what the score is. And so that is, of course, a big thing that at first I kind of struggled with staying focused, because like I'll be trying to like finish the bout as quickly as I could. But after I transferred over to Coach Charles, it was a big thing that he talked to me about. It was just about staying focused, and so that is, of course, a big thing that I am thinking about going into this weekend. I have to make sure that I am focused and that I am ready for each match so that I can score each touch.
Now, I got to ask this question because just by reading some of the clippings, when you what was it like to tell a lot of your friends about, because, you talk about black people in golf and all these other different sports, and people, I don't know, sometimes when people say fencing, a lot of people really don't understand what fencing is and all about. I've seen it on television, and I've seen it at the Olympics. And how did you deal with that whole situation regarding people around you talking about, black people don't get into this particular sport? I mean, how did you deal with that?
Right. So actually at first, about 9th and 10th grade, no one knew that I fenced, because I didn't tell anybody, because I was very, very embarrassed about the fact that I fenced. So I didn't tell anybody. And then about halfway through 10th grade, I qualified for summer nationals, and my mom, she didn't even tell me she was going to, but she sent in the fact that I qualified for summer nationals into my school, and they posted on the website, in the newspaper, everywhere. It was all over the school, and then teachers were coming up to me, students were coming up to me, telling me that they had no idea that I fenced, and then at that moment, so teachers were always very enthusiastic about the fact that I fenced, and they always had multiple questions for me. And some of my peers, they thought it was funny, and they would use it as like something to to make fun of me about the fact that I fenced. But all of my closest friends were very interested in the fact that I fenced, and it was a great opportunity. For me to like show them different aspects of fencing. And so in that moment, I kind of realized who my true friends were, because the people who I was closest with, they were interested in the sport, and the people who found it funny, it was people who, as my parents said, must have just been jealous of my multiple successes in the sport. But now at this point, everybody at my school knows that I fence, and many people are actually very interested in the fact that I fence. And so after the Baltimore Sun article came out, a few teachers emailed me, and a few of my peers sent me text messages, they were just telling me how interesting it was to read the articles, and how they were like very proud of me and all that I've accomplished.
Wow. Yeah, and because like I say, it's one of those sports that's non-traditional. And it's one of those things where people kind of like, oh wow, this is this sport, but it's another avenue. I mean, it seems to be, and Coach Green, you can kind of I guess agree with this too, that it's good to see that black people are exploring other avenues of sport that don't follow along the traditional lines. Now I gotta ask this before I ask this question too. I can get this in here. Amir, do you have Olympic aspirations? The Tokyo Olympics are coming up this year, and I guess 4 years from now or 3 years from now, however they're going to do this, there'll be another Olympiad. Do you have Olympic aspirations at this point?
I get that question all the time, and at this moment, it's not something that I think about often. Because right now I'm just focused on college, and I'm focused on trying to make my mark at Lafayette. But it is something that I would love to accomplish. And so like in my next couple of years in college, I'm really going to focus on training, and if that comes into my path, then of course that is something that I will jump at the opportunity to attend, because it is such a great honor to be able to represent America in the Olympics. But at this moment, I'm just really focused on trying to do well in college, and of course the Junior Olympics this weekend. But it is definitely something that I would love to accomplish sometime in my life, and hopefully soon, because it'll be very nice to represent America.
Right, and you got this competition coming up. When you look at your physical attributes in the sport, and I would take it that speed, knowing when to attack, and knowing when to go after your opponent, what would you say is your biggest asset in the sport?
Probably my speed, I would say, because it is definitely something that I worked hard on, and it is really something over quarantine I was focused on. I was trying to get my footwork better. And in that sense, I was trying to get faster footwork, because I realized it was something that was holding me back from going from a good fencer to a great fencer. And so it was just hand speed and foot speed. And it was something that my dad always talked to me about. He was always focused on me just trying to have faster hands and faster feet. So I definitely do feel like my speed and quickness and in both my hands and my feet are my greatest attributes when it comes to fencing.
Okay. So and I can see that, the hand, the whole thing, I'm trying to demonstrate it on camera and everything. I'm not being good at it, but, and all that. So So and that seems to be the joy of the sport. You like to it's like boxing. It's like boxing in a sense, in the sense that you're not trying to knock a guy out. And of course, in the olden days, they were the duels where where a person certainly met their death. But I think it seems to me you like that the competitiveness of it, yes, and you seem to like the. But one quick thing, I'm going to get in all these questions in because I got a short segment, so I got to get through questions. Is there a role model that you looked up to? Is there someone in the sport that you looked up to, when you were coming up?
Yes. So Miles Chamley Watson, he's an African American, and he fenced in the 2012 and 2016 Olympics. He's not fencing in the Olympics this year because he's injured, but coming up as a young black fencer, he was someone who I always looked up to because he was someone he was African American. He is African American, and he excelled at the sport. And so he was someone who I always wanted to, model my fencing after, because he is such a good fencer. And off the strip, he is a good person too, because he is trying to bring fencing to the African-American communities. And that is definitely something I am trying to do as well in my life. I'm trying to bring fencing to other young African-Americans because it is something that I am so passionate about. And I really feel like other people could be just as passionate as I am about the sport. And so coming up, he was definitely someone who I looked up to.
Okay. Well, we are running out of time, and I just found out is Ibataj Muhammad. She was the one that won she won it, I think, and she won competing with the hijab, and I think she won in the saber. I want to say the saber competition.
Yep,
okay.
Saber.
All right. So I just wanted to make sure I got them right. So you want to be an advocate for the sport. And like I said, we'll see. So they'll be seeing you down at the Philadelphia Convention Center. Yes, and you'll be in college at Lafayette College, and that's in Indiana, Pennsylvania, right, or Eastern Pennsylvania?
Yes, sir. So it's Eastern Pennsylvania. So it's about 45 minutes from Philly.
Okay. All right. So, like I say again, before I let you go, anything else you'd like to say before we let you go? And I want to say to you, thank you for being here, and good luck with your competition. I hope I believe you're going to win. So I got to encourage you. So from that standpoint, I just it was good to have you. Before we got 20-something seconds to say, what would you like to say about the sport that we in our African American community Philly would like to know?
If anyone is looking for a sport, it's fun and it's competitive, and you can feel free to go to any fencing club. I know you will have a great time. And it's a lot of fun. So if anyone is looking for a sport or anyone just looking for something to do over the summer because they're bored, definitely go check out fencing because it is something that you will have a lot of fun with. Okay,
Amir Whitehead, thank you so much. And Coach Charles Ring, thank you guys for being here today. And like I say, ladies and gentlemen, check out the fencing competition at the convention center today and tomorrow. We got a good weekend to do it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM WURD. The Chris Murray Report will be right back.
The Sweet Treat Hut is the highest-rated juice bar in Philly, located on the corner of 50th and Thompson Streets, providing delicious, healthy vegan food, juices, and smoothies. Treat yourself to a cup of happiness. Call 215-877-1471.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WordRadio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WordRadio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. Celebrate independence in music this July 5th with WURD Radio's Indie Vibe Music Movement, a special day-long broadcast featuring music and conversation about the history and impact of black music. We're kicking it off with a celebration of funk and soul with host Carol Riddick, beginning at 7 a.m. At 10 a.m., it's hip-hop with the rapping professor Dr. Aaron Smith. Then at 1, it's Caribbean music, hosted by Lloyd Cummings. At 4, it's house and Afrobeat with hosts Rich Medina, and Lady Alma, with music from Mike Nice. Then wrap up the day with Neo Soul, hosted by John Barber, and a special music mix by Fatine Dantzler of Kindred the Family Soul. It's going down Monday, July 5th, beginning at 7 a.m. Listen live on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and on the new WURD Radio app, available on the Apple App Store and in Google Play, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio, independent Black media.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Okay, we are back. Our next guest is Yusuf Khan, the managing editor, CEO, commander-in-chief, and all those other things of firstandpen.com. But I gotta say something before we get started with Yusuf. One of the things that I've often closed my show with is the support of Black media like WURD. I'm wearing my Forward Word T-shirt today, and I always tell people to support, because nobody can tell our story better than we can. I don't think anyone in this world tells our story with the kind of perspective that we can tell our story. We just had the young man, Amir Whitehead, who was on with us talking about fencing. And I want to start off, Yusuf, by talking about your .com space, firstandpen.com, and from your perspective, because it is your magazine, I mean, it is your site, and you have a lot of experience. You've worked at the Shadow League, ESPN, you've been everywhere. What do you want viewers and people who come to your site to get from this site that perhaps we're not getting from the Undefeated or from some other sites that are out there?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on. I truly appreciate it. One of the things that I've always felt in my long media career is that we are sometimes fragmented in terms of being in different states and cities. So something that goes on in Philly, you might not know about in New York or Detroit or LA. And yet it has relevance nationally because it's an issue that maybe is social or political or sports related, etc. So what I wanted to do with firstandpen.com is to bring these local stories to light and connect and inspire and educate and inform communities, countrywide, so that, again, something might happen in Tennessee that is also happening in Detroit, but now those communities know and they can connect and unite to be a little more stronger and supportive with each other.
Yeah, because there are a lot of stories about sports that we don't talk about. There's a lot of things, social issues, because there's a couple of social issues I'm going to ask you about when we, in another part of this interview that's going on now, especially with Sha'Carri Richardson and the young swimmers and all that. But, it seemed like some of those issues happen in local areas, though. I mean, we had a situation in New Jersey a few years ago where a guy had to they were talking to this guy to cut off his dreads during a wrestling match and all those other things. And so I just wanted to get, to talk about the magazine in that regard, although you do deal with some other national issues, but how important are those local issues? Because especially with the breakdown, we don't have local newspapers like we used to. And we don't have, a lot of times, one of my biggest pet peeves with the Black press is that you're not just the local press, but what happens in your community affects Black communities throughout the country. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, it really starts with local, right? When you have a local presence, you are able to strengthen things nationally. So, for example, look at what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, right? That was a local movement that gained national support just in Georgia. And people were contributing to the campaigns and the efforts in Georgia from all areas, right? So there's always a strength of local community that you can build sort of a foundation upon. So, for example, as you mentioned with the wrestler, I believe it was 2018 when he had his dreads cut off in order to compete. It was a Southern New Jersey wrestling match. You know, to sort of mass media audiences, maybe that didn't mean anything because they're like, well, he had to compete. This is what you have to do. But for the Black community who understands what those dreads represent, what your hair represents to Black people as a whole, to cut that off, you know, when I saw it, I was immediately offended. If I were his parent, I was coming down out of the stands, you know, and be like, no, I'm forfeiting the match then, because that is a sense of identity that you're stripping from him unnecessarily too, completely unnecessarily, in order to compete. And that is why we have to have publishers such as myself, firstandpen.com, in order to bring light to these local issues that sometimes a national audience doesn't see until we shed light on it.
Right. And I mean, obviously you're getting a lot of support from people. Is it the hard part about startups is just trying to find those that support? Are you having those issues and whatnot as well, or you know, just financing and all this other stuff? That is usually a hard stuff. Sometimes we journalists maybe. I'm not saying that this is you, but sometimes we're good at the idea part, but somehow the business and advertising part, it's a struggle. And so I was wondering if you could talk about that aspect of it as well.
Sure. So I've been fortunate in my career that I started at the bottom. I started ESPN, and actually I started with the Knicks first, and then I moved to ESPN in '99. And I entered in as a planner, which is a junior level position in planning and pricing. From there, I learned how the business of sports media operates. That is something that unfortunately not a lot of our people get to experience because there just aren't many of us in that field. But I was able to learn, how do you price things? How do you structure things? How do you build negotiations off of rates? That is what sports media is all about. You know, in order for ESPN to become a multi-billion-dollar company, they have to have a pricing structure in place. They have to acquire programming. They have to understand, how do the ratings affect and drive revenue? I came up in that field. That was my first 5 years of my career. So from that, I understood how the business works. Then I got into traditional sales and marketing and sponsorships. I'm sort of I guess a unicorn, not to brag, but I have background experience in not only sales and marketing, but on the digital side, television side, and the event side. And not a lot of people in our industry have those three qualities in terms of sales and marketing. And I have that. So I'm able to understand and navigate a little easier in terms of, how do you make money for your company? How do you bring it to market? And how do you build scale?
Yeah, and that's often the thing that we, people lack. And that's good that you're getting into that aspect, because it seems to me, I look at, both of us have been to NABJ conventions and things of that nature. Everybody's there to find a job. And we rarely go to look at these things, to look at the business side of it, because I look at the Black press, and I think that we need to, because a lot of the people like in Philadelphia, Bob Bogle and a lot of people who run the Philadelphia Tribune, they're getting old, and they're going to need some young talent. So, how important is it that we encourage the entrepreneurial side of media, and that we also encourage the ownership of media? Because, like I said again, if I have a criticism of the Black press, is that somehow they didn't prepare people to run them after, a lot of the families. So how important is understanding the entrepreneurial side of media?
Well, I think, first of all, it's very important. We need independent publishers out there who can talk in a different language, one that people understand a lot better. But I think also what's important to understand is that there's been a transition, and as we know, traditional print it's regressing, and we know that. But that doesn't mean it's dead, and I think that's the problem. Too many people are like, print is dead. No, it just shifted to digital. And for those who were smart enough to see it, they made that transition more seamlessly. So now you've got the ability of Black media to transfer from print, which is obviously a traditional vehicle of Black, connecting Black communities, to digital side. It's the same thing with radio. Radio didn't die. It just became a little more diverse. It went to podcasts. It became satellite radio. So for those who understood it and made that transition over, it's a much better experience. It's extremely important for us to have not only independent voices, but independent ownership. So like, for example, my company, I've been in startups for 18 years, 19 years now. And I've worked at some companies where I've had success, and I've been fortunate enough to be a part of great, successful startups. Right. I wanted to do the same with First and Penn, and so I put my own money into it. I own it 100%, and I want to work with partners, not venture capitalists, not people who just want to get an exit strategy, but partners who understand how do we build this for the long term. So it isn't just a 3-year and out strategy, and that negatively impacts Black media. No, how do we put money into this? How do we put resources and time to build this so that 20, 30 years from now, it's still around and thriving without losing the impact and the voice of what it started with?
Wow. And that's really important. That's really, really important. And I'm going to tell you something. Going from I started my career in radio. Then I went to print. And one of the things that I love about digital, especially on the radio, on the broadcast side, is I don't have to cut tape anymore with the grease pencil. But you also are going to deal with some of the national issues that are in sports. And I want to talk about them a little bit since I got you here. And, we've been talking about Sha'Carri Richardson. And my take on that earlier in the day was sometimes, we get caught up in the respectability politics. Yes, it's easy to say that Sha'Carri Richardson should have just said no and not done it, but she was dealing with some, emotional, traumatizing issues such as the death of her parent. But what are your thoughts about what's going on with her? We talk about the legalization of marijuana in various states, and yet I did all the research. There's I cannot find where marijuana enhances your performance in a sprint event unless you're in a race to eat Doritos and double cheeseburgers from McDonald's. So, what are your thoughts on that situation?
Well, first of all, I ran track in high school and college. And so I can tell you honestly that, there are certain things that will never, ever enhance your performance, right? And what you got to look at it in context. What was she going through? She's still very young. She only ran 1 year in college and then jumped to the pros. So that is a big step. B, she had just found out, not from her family, but from a reporter, as she stated, that her biological mother had passed away. After not having, and she's talked about this, not having a great relationship with her, but finding out literally right when you're trying out for the Olympic trials that your biological mother passed away, that causes a lot of emotion that many of us cannot relate to. We can definitely sympathize, but we can't relate. So she was dealing with a lot of different things going in. Third thing, marijuana in Oregon is legal. So it's not like she went to a drug spot and had to buy some illegal drugs, right? So it was a legal thing. So to me, I don't think it affects the performance, nor does it mar the field of track and field. Like, this wasn't a betting scandal or anything of that nature. It was literally, she was dealing with whatever it is, anxiety, depression, sadness. This is how she coped with it. But it did nothing to enhance her on the track performance. Now she's being punished for it. Does the rules say that you cannot take it during competition? Yes, it does. However, did it really do anything to give her a added boost or power? No. And I think it's ridiculous to dwell on something which is now legal, including legal in that state, to punish her for it. And I don't think she should be punished. I think it was, unfortunately, it was a mistake. We all make mistakes. She's still, 20 years old. But does it affect her going forward? Does it affect her in terms of performing on the track? Not at all. And I think they need to make an exception for her. I get both sides, but I think that she should not be punished to this severity for something like that.
Yeah, that's, I just thought it was extreme. But I was also kind of, I don't know, bothered by some voices in our community. And it's good that, I don't expect black people to always agree. And it's good that we have this disagreement. But I do think that it speaks to some of the reaction that I got, speaks to sometimes I think in the black community, we tend to ignore mental health issues. I mean, if the body is sick, we fix the body. The mind is sick, the mind and the heart are troubled. We have to fix that too. So I just thought it was just, there's this whole thing of respectability politics in our community, and we sometimes don't always, deal with these things in the kind of way. Like gays and lesbians are still kind of shunned in the community, so to speak. So I kind of look at it as that we as a community, and I understand where people are coming from, but I think that we as a community really have to learn to deal with those issues. I mean, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but I wonder if that's kind of the consensus throughout. Is this kind of a debate in our community when it comes to those things?
I think there is a debate about it. I think when we were coming up, right, because we're in the same generation, that when you had these issues, you had to find a way to deal with them by yourself, right? And you say, look, don't bring that here, get on the basketball court, get on the track, whatever it is, and just go handle your business, right? Regardless of whether you were suffering internally, that wasn't the way. Nowadays, athletes have more resources and more opportunity to discuss them without having any sort of prejudice weighed against them. But it's still a challenge. It's still a challenge for people, one, to open up, and two, to actually accept it, and say, okay, let us get you some help. And I think the third thing, when people hear mental health, they automatically, and this is a stereotype, they automatically assume something is wrong with them mentally, right? Like it's a psychological thing. And I think that's an improper stereotype, and one, again, that plagues our community, because it's not about, are you, depressed, or is there something mentally wrong? Do you have schizophrenia? That's what it sort of denotes. But it could literally just be mental exhaustion. We saw it with Naomi Osaka. The pressure and the requests that these athletes have to get on this phone call, answer 100 questions at a press conference, it weighs on you, especially when you're given the same answer over and over and over again. Then you add the travel, then you add sponsor requirements. It weighs on you. So you could be mentally exhausted, and that goes into mental health. But again, the stigma of mental health is, wait, something's wrong with you mentally? Are you schizophrenic? Is there some? And that's not what that always entails. So I think, to your point, there has to be a little more discussion and honesty about what goes into the mental health discussions, and how do we open it up to remove more of these stigmas and stereotypes around it.
Yeah. Switching gears from, because we're coming up on a break, there was a a black swimming company that supplied caps to black swimmers because of these concerns with hair and all that. And it seems that now that the Olympics, that they banned these things, and there's still this, I think that there's still this reluctance in sport to accept some of the cultural differences of black athletes. We talked about Editaj Muhammad, who wore her burqa during her competition, or hijab. I'm sorry to say that, but to wore her hijab. And I just wanted to get your thoughts, and some of the things that you've come across in terms of this ongoing battle in the Olympics. There's still this, I don't know, this sort of, I still feels like I feel the shadow of Avery Brundage, hawking over the Olympic Games.
Right. Part of the problem is sports in some ways have been very, very slow and reluctant to embrace cultural differences and the cultural needs of a changing athlete. So you mentioned the hijab, right? So not only does it affect, Olympic fencers, as we saw, but it also affects swimmers, figure skaters, basketball players, etc. Women who wear hijabs are playing other sports. You saw Nike design a sports hijab for some of their athletes who are Muslim, you know, but sports as a culture is very slow to embrace that. And part of it is ignorance, part of it is they're living in the past. And there is no, as we know, there is no athletic advantage to wearing an athletic hijab, or in this case, a swim cap that protects the natural hair that a lot of white swimmers don't have. Black hair, as we know, is very different, you know? So it's time for them to sort of open up their arms and embrace some different practices. And I think that's also on us as a community to get on these committees to say, listen, we cannot be judged on what we did in the 60s and 70s. There are too many differences now. So now we got to change, and we have to adopt different swim caps, different types of athletic hijabs, and any other cultural, you know, sort of apparel that might come up, because it does affect different people different ways.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. We're getting ready to go to break, and I have to unfortunately bring this segment to an end, man. We could talk about it. First of all, I'd like to have you to come back here from time to time to talk about, but I want to wrap this discussion by talking about media. What you're doing, first of all, I got to commend you for it, and just to say, man, because like I said, we could always use more and more sports media outlets. I mean, there's not enough of us in talk radio. There's not enough of us in a lot of areas. So this station itself, we rely on membership. I mean, you know, and I know you're in competition with a lot of other people out there. I mean, how can the community support, you know, its own media? Because some of my, you know, oh good Lord, some of the things when I leave the air, I always say, hey, support Black media. We got a lot of Black media outlets. How important is it that we support all of them in some meaningful way? Because to start this segment, no one can tell our story better than we can.
Right. And I think it's very important, one, to support Black media. Two, I don't look down on any of the competitors that are out there. You know, listen, Undefeated, when I was at Shadow League, we competed with Undefeated, but Undefeated came out of the Shadow League. That's how it came about. But does that mean that I wish the Undefeated wrong? Not in the least bit. I hope they survive because it's necessary. You know, I hope independent radio. I'm a New York City kid, so KISS FM growing up was the big station. When they closed and went to ESPN station, that ripped a part of my childhood away. You know, fortunately, we still have BLS and not to mention competitors, but that's how important it is to support Black media, because if you don't, it will get eaten up by another entity. That's something that I really take to heart with firstandpen.com, because I wanted to launch this as an independent, minority-owned and operated business. And it's important to have independent voices out there because you need to have different perspectives. You need to know what's going on in different communities and how to talk with those communities. The other thing from a publisher side, right? So from your station, from my site, firstandpen.com, it's important for us to put out the right messaging, to have credibility, to have professionalism and an understanding what's really going on. Because if it's just going to be smoke and mirrors, it's going to eventually hurt us in the long run. And I would rather be professional and credible with my content than just say, hey, I'm a Black media site, support me. I want to bring value, and that's important for all Black media to have.
And one final thing, one of the things that Black media outlets often have is getting access to local sports, you know, like the pro teams, college teams, and all that. And a lot of times, you know, it's all, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I have access with the Eagles and the Phillies and all these other things. So, but it's always a difficult thing to get that access, you know, to cover the games, the press conferences. Not that you're going to be out doing game stories and all that, but just to be able to build that trust between athletes and the organizations and the Black press, and understanding that our media outlets are very important. I was wondering if you can address that situation, because it's always a battle. You know, my wife, who covers politics for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, trying to get into Biden's, you know, press situation and all that. And she gets there, but it's always a struggle.
Right. It's a multifaceted layer that we have to get through. First of all, we have to bring value to what they're looking for, right? You can't just go in and be like, yeah, I'm with this black press and I want to do this thing. You have to be able to come with, what are you looking for? What are you going to deliver? And what have you done? They want to know, what have you done? That's important. You have to be able to show them. Now, once we're in the room, you have to show what you can do. You don't just ask questions that everyone has asked. You don't ask insulting questions. Show the research that you put in the time and ask questions that the athlete or the whoever you're interviewing will be like, wow, that's a really interesting thing. Know your subject matter. All of those things arm you much better and get you prepared to get into those positions. Listen, they're not easy to get into. And a lot of times black press either gets the last of the interviews or doesn't get into the room at all. I've been fortunate in my career that where I've been and what we've presented has been great work by everyone involved, writers that have worked for me, content producers. So people see it and they're like, we're going to put you in the second row in Barclays Center at the boxing match. You know, that's the type of access that we deserve, but we have to show that we deserve it. And once we're there, we have to maintain it. And we have to be better. Unfortunately, and I don't mean this negatively, we have to be better than the traditional mass media press. So let us do something that they are not doing. And that's why having black independent voices are so important to have, because when we can tell stories differently than anyone else, we become much more valuable.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Yusuf Khan, thank you for being here. We will have you back here at certain times of the year as events warrant and everything. Thank you so much for being here today. We definitely appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man and all that. Thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. And definitely check us out, firstandpen.com, across all social and the site. I appreciate you for having me on and look forward to speaking with you again, man.
All right, thank you very much. You take care of yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to 96.1 FM, 908 and 900 AM WURD, the Chris Murray Report. Will be right back. Thank you so much.
Enterprise Exterminators, located at 4943 Wayne Avenue, has been in business since 1976 and can eliminate whatever pest problems you have. Enterprise specializes in bed bugs, lanternflies, and termites. Call for your free termite inspection today. Do-it-yourself kits are available. Enterprise Exterminators, servicing Philadelphia, Delaware, and New Jersey. Call now, 215-849-7070. Ask us about the WURD and senior discounts.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax-Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Okay, we are back. Man, interesting segments today. Man, oh man. I mean, and I hope people are watching us today, you know, via Facebook or listening to us by the radio and all that. We have some really good stuff today. We're going to have Marlisa Lawrence Corbett back today to talk about Wimbledon, to talk about Serena Williams and Coco Gauff. Coco Gauff advanced to the fourth round today, beating what is this woman's name? Jovan. I think her name is Asia Jovan and whatnot. She beat her in straight set 6-3, 6-3. I saw some things in that match that, you know, Coco is a young player, and there's some things she struggled through today because she was up big earlier in the first set. She was like she was just going to win and, you know, just win in dominating fashion, but she had a few hiccups in that first set, and she came back and worked her way through it. And I was texting Marlisa this morning, and I'm asking her this when she comes in, when she gets on. I was texting her to talk about, hey, wow, what's up with her, because she kept hitting the ball into the net. And she basically told her, Marlisa came back and says, well, she's you know, playing up to her opponent had forced her to get better. And that in sports is sometimes your opponent makes you rise to the occasion, Jordan. I mean, we've seen it a lot of times in the team sports, individual. Sometimes the team you're playing sometimes will make you play at that higher level. We were hoping that for Ben Simmons, to match Trae Young, but it just didn't happen. So a lot of times your opponents will get you there. So that's one thing. Now, so from that standpoint, we talked a lot today about now there was a swimmer, and apparently there was this black swim company, and basically the Olympics basically banned the hats or the swimming caps used to cover up black hair because the hair texture is so different. And I mentioned the guy Avery Brundage during my interview with Khan, and Avery Brundage was a very racist head of the IOC, long time, and he was a guy who threw out Tommy Smith and John Carlos at the Olympics, and basically banned Jesse Owens for basically running for free and refusing to attend more meets where he was running for free and not given any money to keep running, and banned him from the sport forever. And it's just this attitude that the International Olympic Committee has often had towards people of color, and with the whole thing about protests, they were warning people, and it's a sign of those days with Avery Brundage. So I think in the end, we still have these attitudes in sports, and it's an ongoing thing. I expect to see a lot of activism at these Olympics, whether the IOC or the USOC likes it or not. On that note, we have on hold with us, and is about to be on, Melissa Lawrence Corbett. And I want you to talk, Melissa, a little bit about Coco's day in the third round. I thought she looked good, but there was that hiccup in the first set that I thought that, okay, I was hoping that, hey, don't lose it. It looked like she ran into a rough patch, and she worked her way through. What are your thoughts about that today? She eventually won 6-3, 6-3, but how did she progress her way through today?
Well, the first thing is that she was able to win in straight sets, which is hard to do even for the top players. So I thought she performed well, kept her cool when her opponent was, getting some momentum. Even the crowd was starting to get behind Jovan. But, Coco's been pretty consistent. Her serve is great, and I was laughing. I was telling somebody that her opponent kept trying those drop shots, and Coco kept getting to them. And I said, okay, does her opponent know that Coco's mom ran track at Florida State? This girl is fast. So it's like you can't be doing that drop shot stuff against Coco because she will get to the ball. Remember, like I said, her mom ran track, Florida State. Her dad played basketball for Georgia State. So we're talking about a really good athlete here who's learning to be an even better tennis player. I think I told you before that her tennis needs to catch up with her athleticism. I'm starting to see her play better tennis. She's got the athleticism. She's got to be one of the quickest. Now, her next match is going to be tough because she's going up against
Kerber.
Kerber is a great athlete. Because she's white, people don't give her props. She's one of the better athletes on tour, and she's a lefty. The reason she was able to beat Serena at Wimbledon, the reason she was able to beat Serena at the Australian Open, remember, she's beaten Serena in 2 Grand Slam finals. So Kerber is really good. It's just that, you know how it is. If she doesn't play the look how cute I am game, they don't promote them as much. But she has 3 Grand Slam titles.
Right.
And she moves. And she's a counterpuncher, kind of like golf. So golf just has to be patient because you're not going to get as many balls past Kerber because she's fast, too. She's a great athlete, too. And so I feel like if golf gets past that, I'm picking her to win it all. Because to me, Kerber right now is the toughest out. I don't care where she's ranked. When you've been there and you got them titles, when you got championship pedigree, I mean, she's borderline future Hall of Famer. It's different when they get close to it. They've been there before. So I think she's the toughest out for Coco because, Kerber's getting her groove back. She thought she'd be meeting Serena now. But she's meeting, or in the third round. That's what she thought. So I think Coco's playing well. She's just got to keep, stay focused. Don't get down on herself. She's been pretty even keel. She seems to have worked out her double faults. That was a problem at the French Open. Mm-hmm. She seems to have worked through that. So, we got her and Madison Keys are the last American women standing. So, again, black folks represent. So it's going to be interesting. Madison Keys is playing well, and I didn't give her much of a shot. And sometimes when nobody's picking you, you're not feeling the pressure, and she's playing like somebody with house money. She doesn't, she's not on center court a lot. Nobody's paying attention to her, and she's just winning. Right. So I'm thinking with the focus off of her, she might be able to relax and not choke. Yeah.
And that's, but that's interesting you say that, because like Sloane Stephens was eliminated, and of course I want to talk about Serena in a moment, but I want to go back to Coco for a second. Her match against Kerber, is that like one of the biggest tests of her career in terms of the Grand Slam? She's young, she's 17 years old. It's almost, I would say it's akin to that young contender having to fight a world champion in boxing. And so will this be kind of uncharted waters for Coco? And you said that she has to be focused, and how do you think she'll handle that situation in against a person who has experience at winning Grand Slams and winning at Wimbledon?
I'm not sure how Coco is going to handle it. It's going to tell me a lot about where she is, because Kerber is someone, in her last match, the one she played today, she dropped the first set, and then her opponent, I think, maybe won 2 or 3 other games. She's the type, at the year she beat Serena at the Australian Open, she faced a match point in the first round. So this is somebody who, she's not going to get rattled because you take a set. She's not going to get rattled because she drops 3 games. So Coco can't get too far up or too down against a player like Kerber, who's seen it all. She knows she can come back from a down a set. She knows you can have 3 games on her and she could erase those. Plus, she's a lefty. I don't know how many lefties that Coco gets to play. It's different. It does come at you different. So this is going to tell me a lot. I mean, Coco has played Naomi Osaka. She's played Venus, but when she played Venus, career was on the decline. When she played Osaka, Coco was the new person. Nobody expected her to beat Naomi. Now she's like almost even with Kerber. She's got the higher seeding right now over Kerber. Right. She's seeded higher than Kerber because Kerber had some injuries, came back. She had a horrible year up until she hit grass, to be honest. Kerber had been having a horrible year. So this will tell me so much about Coco. I mean, I was similar to that is, FAA, Felix. I was watching him against Kyrgios. He was seated higher. He came out so stiff, so tight, like he was scared. And I think it was Mike and Rose saying how they're opposites, where Nick plays like he just don't care. He did no prep. He hardly played this year. And Felix is a very serious guy, and he seems so tight. He was like, maybe if Felix got a little bit more Kyrgios, and if Kyrgios had a little bit more Felix, we'd be looking at a player who's going to win 10 Grand Slams. And so I feel like Felix can learn to relax because he's only 20. So I do think he'll win a Grand Slam. And he's the last black guy left in the whole field. And he's from Canada, but still, he's a brother.
Yeah. I was gonna say, now he dropped that first set 2-6. I watched that, and you're right. He came out nervous, but then he comes back in the second set. Now, did Kyrgios retire because he came back?
He was hurt. He was saying he couldn't move. And remember, he didn't have a lot of prep. He spent most of this year home playing basketball. He didn't have a lot of prep. So he was saying that he could barely move. It was something in his midsection or something. But, you know, you could see Felix starting to relax. And when he relaxes, I mean, he can move. He's got the kill shots. He's got the serve. He can gain a little bit more weight, I think, put on a little bit more muscle, but he is very serious. You can see him overthinking things. And it's like, okay, relax. You're only 20, Felix. Because he's gotten to finals and completely choked. That was the, you know, what people would start making fun of him. And I'm like, you guys, he's only 20. I mean, give him a break. Give him some time. Even the greats, some of them in men's, didn't start winning Grand Slams until they were in their 20s. So I feel like he's the real deal. You know, we'll see. But he definitely tends to get tight in big matches.
Wow.
Where Coco, if she's ahead, she's relaxed. Sometimes when she's behind, she plays loose. She's, you know, I mean, she's 17, still trying to figure things out.
Yeah, I mean, and then that's going to be the evolution of athletes. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, I remember Naomi Osaka when she was coming up. You know, was always seemed to be, I wouldn't say not sure of herself, but you know, it was just sometimes, you know, I guess you have to kind of grow into your body, so to speak. I hope that's the correct analogy that I'm making there. Is that when you can or grow into your confidence. Sometimes you're a great player, but sometimes you're still trying to test the limits of your talent. Would you say that's where Aliassime and Coco are at this point?
I think they're starting to. You have to figure out who you are as a player, and even in basketball, if you watch Giannis, everybody knows he has the talent, but sometimes he'll be like, you know, trying to bring. I'm like, you're not a point guard. Stop it. You're big. You know, it's like, dude, get in the low post. You know, cut it out. You know, it's like sometimes when you're so talented, you're like, I can do all these things. It's like, okay, that's good that you can do that. But no, you're not a point guard. Get down the low post. You need to be dominating, swinging your elbows, moving that big body, get in the low post, okay? That's where you need to wreak havoc. It's great that you got handles, but you ain't Steph Curry. Stop it. You know, and so I think when you're young like that, you're trying to figure out who it is you are, and somebody gets in your head, you can do it all. It's like, find out, instead of saying, I can do 5 things okay, find those 2 things that you can dominate it. Like, hey, yeah, Shaq can't shoot free throws. It would have been better, but he's going to clear out the paint. So do the 2 things you can do better than anybody else and excel at those. Don't be trying to do all of that stuff. And so that's why I feel like Felix needs to just kind of relax, figure out what your game is. Coco's finding it out. She's good. You do need variety in tennis, but I'm saying you can't try to be every style of player. You can't just be everything. You got to find out who you are as a player and run with that. And so I think they'll get there because they're both quite intelligent and they're pretty even keel. That's what I like about both. They are the future because emotionally they seem very mature, those 2.
Okay. Now, I got to go to break because of this. And the last part of I said, I want to ask you about Serena and some of the other black tennis players that are involved. And I want to talk especially about Serena and, you know, maybe and what her future is going to be, because we kind of talked about that earlier this week. So when we come back, that's what we'll deal with. So you're listening to 96.1 FM, 900 AM WURD, the Chris Murray Report. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Jose Hernandez, and I have been using a wheelchair since my accident in 1995. I guess if I had one message for the general public, it would be that I appreciate your help, but please ask first. I know you mean well, but I've actually got everything under control. And if I don't, I'll ask for assistance. People with disabilities just want the same respect and consideration as everyone else.
This is a message from United Spinal Association. Download our disability etiquette booklet at unitedspinal.org.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Okay, we are back. I got to take care of some house cleaning things right now, and I will do that before we get back to our guest, Melissa Lawrence Corbett. But I got to ask you guys a question, though. Are you looking for a job? Okay. Are you looking for a job? Well, we got you covered. We just launched our brand new job portal featuring jobs from some of Philadelphia's leading companies and arts organizations. If you go to the portal right now, you will see jobs from WURD Radio, the Kimmel Center, and also Her Foods. Always Best Care, and of course, WURD Radio. Apply for a job today. Go to our livelihood website at wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com and click on jobs. So, ladies and gentlemen, looking for a job, go right there. Find yourself a job. All right, we are back. Now, Serena Williams retired this week from her match. No, she didn't retire from tennis, but she retired from a match because of injury. And, you know, more of it as I go through social media, and more people are saying, well, maybe it's time for her to get out of the game. But I don't buy that, Merlisa, because I think that she still has plenty of tennis left. I mean, talk about her this week and just dealing with those injuries and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, she slipped and hurt herself. Her thigh was already wrapped, so she did have an injury before she came into the match. So she had that injury, but she had it wrapped. She was moving well early in her match. It was just an unfortunate accident. How she comes back. The problem is that now you're looking at U.S. Open, Australian Open, both on the hard courts. I think her competitors are more numerous on those courts. I mean, you have a ton of people, Naomi, Azarenka, people who play well on the hard courts. Grass court, Serena's game was more conducive to that. Serena's gotten really good on clay. So it just depends. It's the luck of the draw. I mean, look at Felix. He's battling somebody, and then the next thing you know, the person retires. You get to take the day off. You get more time. You know what I'm saying? So it just depends on the draw. If you would have told me that Venus was going to make it to the second round and Serena wasn't at Wimbledon, I'd be like, nah. But that's what happened. And so, and even like this, there's this young British player, 18, who's into the round of 16, and she just got the luck of the draw. You know, she lucked up and got a bunch of people she could beat, and she's ranked number 300 and something, and she's only 18. So Serena could get that luck. I don't know how much longer she wants to play. Do you want to be the 40-something? Even Federer is looking like he's ready to, you know, check out. Although he looked great today, I think he's still playing right now. Yeah. But it's just hard. It's hard to say. I mean, I don't think she has anything to prove. But as long as she wants to prove something, keep playing. She's got to stay healthy, though. And the thing is, her injuries aren't like Federer took time off and got a knee surgery. If somebody fixes your knee, you can come back stronger. Because if you've been dealing with but stuff like she has, like thighs and ankles, those are like chronic.
Right.
You know, so that's the problem. You know, you got Andy Murray. He didn't win, but I mean, dude's out there with a new hip. You usually don't even come back from that. And Taylor Fritz, the American, I really don't see how he got out there. He had knee surgery 27 days ago, and he's out there on the grass today. And I'm like, well, that's youth for you. You can do that when you're young. And I think you've seen Coco slide. If you're 17 and you slide, you get back up. If you're going on 40 and your thigh is already wrapped up, that's the thing. A young Serena might have been able to recover from that. This Serena could not.
But you expect to see her. She'll be at the U.S. Open and all that.
I expect her. Yeah, she's skipping the Olympics, so I figure she'll be rested for the whole U.S. Open swing because she's skipping the Olympics.
Right. Now, is Coco going to the Olympics? Does she have a shot?
She qualified even before Serena withdrew, but Serena and Kenin, the top two U.S. ranked women, they both declined to go. So Coco, as far as I know, she's going. She's probably definitely going. She would be the number 2 behind Jennifer Brady. She'll be the second highest ranked American player at the Olympics because Serena's not going and Kenin's not going.
Will we expect to see Naomi Osaka competing for Japan? And I'm wondering wondering though with Naomi Osaka about the Japanese and how the Japanese audience still reacts to her, because it's almost like if I'm looking at the signal that they're giving other Black Olympic athletes, there's still that it would appear to me from my untrained, not really understanding what's going on in Japan, that there's still this reluctance in Japan to accept the Black side of Naomi Osaka.
Well, no, I mean, she wouldn't be making all that money if they hadn't accepted her. But she's winning. That's the thing.
Right.
She's winning. I don't think they would have had the same respect for her because, remember, no Japanese player had ever won a slam. None. And Nishikori, their great hope, he was the top player for a while. He's been to a final. But he's dropped off, He's kind of lingering, like the window has closed on his career. He had some injuries, right. So she's the face of Japanese tennis. She's definitely playing in Japan. I thought it was ridiculous if they had just said no protest or no political, but they singled out Black Lives Matter. And for doing that, I guarantee you some people are going to protest. And so I thought it was awful for them to single out Black Lives Matter because there's so many other political groups all over the world, and they singled them out. So I just think you can't have an international gathering and pretend that it's not political. The Olympics have always been political, always.
Yeah, I mean.
So yeah, that's crazy. You're playing for your country. You're coming out there with your flag. It's political.
Right.
It's like, come on,
Yeah, and that's the thing. But and you're right about that. I mean, yeah, because I think that there's a part. I mean, they want, because remember you were telling me that they wanted Osaka to do the interviews in Japanese and all that, and this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
And I just think somehow, I don't know that it's kind of like here. A lot of times, I was sitting there, I was writing about Joe Louis a couple of days ago, and they talked about that for him to get the champion, to win the title, he had to make himself more respectable to a white audience, and that often meant to de-emphasize Blackness. And somehow, how I relate this to the Olympic Games, I look at the swimming cap rule, it was a black swimming cap company that was supplying the Black athletes to hold back hair, to hold their natural hair back. And I just wonder, is it something, I don't know, it seems like somehow there's this thing to not accept Black athletes for who they are and for their, for the uniqueness in the hair and things of that nature. And I just wonder about, I'm wondering about how the Japanese public relates to Black athletes, or this whole thing about we like you, we want you to win, yes, but we want you the way we want to see you. And that's, I get the feeling that could be, I could be wrong, a part of Naomi's, maybe, we talk about some of the mental health challenges that she says she faced.
Well, some of it, I mean, there's a long history of racism in Japan, and of course they use the word hafu, which is it's derogatory, and it's not just against half Black Japanese people, even half white Japanese people are called hafu. So it's almost like if you're not 100% Japanese, and that's a pretty, homogeneous population there. So they have derogatory terms. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago they had a Miss Japan was hafu. Well, I shouldn't use that term. She was half Black, half Japanese, and there was a big uproar against her. But I was like, the fact that she even won told you things were changing. So I think with Naomi Osaka, she's very clear that she's Black. She's very, secure in who she is as a Black person. So I think they're going to have to accept her no matter what. I mean, they like winning. They like her being the champion. But I don't think it's any worse than all of the racism, the history and stuff they've had in Japan. And think about it, even here, how we treat our athletes and you know, some of it's racial and then some of it's cultural and some of it's generational. I mean, if you look at the people outside of LeBron James who get the endorsements, whether it's Dwayne Wade, they're pretty clean cut, no tattoo kind of guys who get more endorsements. Chris Paul, you know, some of that's generational too. So you got more than, it's not just race. There's all kinds of stuff, you know, what's deemed appropriate, what's deemed classy. They always talk about how classy Roger Federer is. I'm like, is he any more classy than Andy Murray? Really? I don't think so. It's just he has that country club demeanor.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's what they mean by classy, because we were talking about on the show, you know, this morning about Sha'Carri Richardson, and we were talking about, you know, the whole thing with the drug testing and all this other stuff. And, you know, I think that as we come into these Olympics, whether it's tennis or whatever, I think, you know, the Japan Olympics are going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing shakes itself out, because, you know, because of the racial politics that, you know, that we're dealing with. So I don't know.
Now, her thing, I separate what happened with her from some of the racial politics, because that's like a rule. It's almost like with Maria Sharapova. Everybody knew this rule. She knew the rule. They counsel you on it. That's something separate. When she says I'm human, she's saying, oops, I messed up. I'm not somebody who smokes pot, so I don't know if 180 if that's a ton. You know, I don't know if that's a lot. That's what they found. And so she knew she was in competition. So, you know, and people say, well, her mom died. I said, well, that is traumatic. It was her biological mom, not the person who raised her. But I think that's separate from racial stuff. I do think her ability to get endorsements was hindered by the, you know, all the tattoos, and people say, well, that's not right. I said, oh, in a perfect world, it's not right, but you got to live how we are. And I was, you know, that they're not going to give a lot of endorsements. You're not going to get every endorsement. She was making money, you know, and she'll still be able to make money. But there's certain companies that don't want, and I don't care if you're black or white, they don't want somebody with tattoos representing their brand.
Yeah.
When we're dead and gone, Chris, that'll probably change. But right now, it's not going to change the next 2 years.
Yeah. Well, you're right. You're probably right about that. We got to wrap up. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here today. As always, we will talk soon.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you. Thank all our guests today, Mira Whitehead, Yusuf Khan, and Melissa Lawrence Corbett, and all of you who support the show. We will see you back next week on the Chris Murray Report, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Have a great day, everybody.